All right, Jahmaal Marshall. It's great to have you here. You look great. You look stronger than last time I saw you. Your character is just as bright, though. That's
Too
kind of the
kind.
same. But yeah, how we got into some stuff, which was why I wanted to us to get going here. But how's it going? How have things been recently?
2025 has been good to me, and 2024 was good to me as well. I think the biggest thing is, one thing about being a business owner is you always want to audit. I think people think of audit and they think of like, tax audit, or corporate audit. But even as a small or large business owner, you do want to audit and see, okay, what's working, where are the holes, where are the gaps, gap analysis. So the same thing I even do with clients from a mental health standpoint, and from a root causes standpoint still needs to be done on the business. And so it's been really cool to say, okay, what are the things we need to do to further scale, the global impact, and then what are the predictable markers of not just generating revenue, but predictable markers of impact. And recently, the podcast became a top 2% globally ranked podcast, which is huge with a listen score of 38. Um, and in my field of education, um, at the top, obviously, we have the Obamas. They're like number one, and then Mel Robbins and those types of people. But, to have my podcast as high as 109 is like, man, that's pretty cool. Amongst a lot of different heavy hitters in the industry. So it's been a lot of exciting things happening. Been this in the last 2 weeks, I've offboarded 3 clients, took 2 others on retention, and took 2 more. So that's been pretty good. And moving now in the sector of corporate workshops and more public speaking and keynotes. So it's exciting. A lot of exciting things happening. A lot of plate spinning.
Yeah. So how much does offboarding clients negate your ability to help people with their mental health? How much in the opposite direction are you going with that?
Oh, not really a opposite direction at all. I mean, like the minimum time I'll take a client is 3 months. We know scientifically it takes 90 days to change the neuroplasticity of our brain. 6 months, you'll get the maximum, whatever you want to say. I have somebody who's they're not going to be working for 9 months. They're like, I need you for three extra, months. But like, you can get
Mm,
really, really good results scientifically in 90 days if you apply yourself, to the process. And of course, my process, I tailor it to each person individually because one size doesn't fit all. So in offboarding, I'm also setting them up with some directives for, this is now how you maintain progress. If for whatever reasons you're unable to continue for an additional 3 months, these are some things I want to set you up with, as well as some other touch points and check-in points. You don't want to just offboard a person and say, "Oh, it's nice working with you." I don't think that's a good recipe for maintaining a relationship, and also, for their own care and their own resilience and their leveling up. It's always best to keep some touch points in the relationship going. But um, the good thing about if you do effective work, you want to be offboarding people. It
that's it. Yeah,
depends on.
that's what made me realize. Yeah, it's better offboarding.
Yeah,
That's even a better maybe badge or indicator of like keeping clients on. Kind of in your space, it's like, I mean, I mean, I don't know. Well, I guess on the one hand, I've heard of people, they have a therapist or somebody that they're talking to. I know that's not exactly what you're doing, but they have someone that they've been talking to for years. 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and they have their therapist, and that's great that they have someone there to support them and to talk about whatever they're going through. But at the same time, I've met people that they always say that they heard this from their therapist, and their therapist told them that they should do this, and they've been talking to them for years, and it doesn't seem like they get any better. So I kind of feel like sometimes maybe people are using therapy as a crutch, or just something where they're not actually really making any progress. Maybe the therapist doesn't even want them to make progress, so they can keep them on as a client. And so I don't know what, in your
I would.
experience. So anyway, I think you're doing a great thing there, offboarding. Let's offboarding 2025. Let's get as many clients out the door as possible.
Yeah, you want to do that, and it's a phrase I've coined and trademarked: the folly of catharsis. I think it can be a bit cathartic to have a place where you can offload. You do want a safe space, especially in today's age when the stigma on mental health and wellness and resilience has been broken. However, one of, I don't want to say claim to fame because none of us have a claim to fame, but I always look for repeatable data points in my offboarding meetings, and I collect that data. I keep it written, I keep it recorded. And so a client, has been working for Fortune 500. They said they have been in cognitive behavioral therapy for over 20 years. They said, Jahmaal, I got with you, and in 4 months, that accelerated my growth exponentially because your process is so tailored to who I am, and it's dealing with the root causes of the subconscious. It's like we can sit around and navel gaze and bemoan our existence until the cows come home. I'm not here for talk therapy. I'm not also here for, we hear the word coach every 5 seconds now. I'm not here to be your cheerleader. I'm here to actually get you results that matter. We need to actually deal with what's going on subconsciously. So, yeah, we got to go back. Coaches don't go back, but also we need to move forward. As a coach, will just ask you questions and get you to come up with the thing. With me as a certified counselor and executive coach, I can do a little bit of all three. I can move you forward, but we got to go back before we go forward. And in the present, what are the things that we're not dealing with that actually has you in quicksand? All three are extremely important, not only neurologically, but also physiologically. And so I think a lot of times in a lot of industries, especially in my industry, a lot of this stuff gets ignored. I mean, you have people making millions and they offer, they over market and under deliver. For those who know my services, like I love the fact when I land on LA Weekly, 90% of the folks in the comments were my clients. If like your clients are saying good things about you, that's when you're cooking. If they're like, well, that's not really the truth, he paid to play. That's when you're doing something wrong. So
Mm.
just like I audit my clients, I allow that scrutiny for myself so that I can level up. But also from a value standpoint, I believe in giving people the biggest bang for their buck and actually finding you don't want to keep people for you don't want to have a lifetime relationship because that would indicate that something is wrong. There's something that's missing.
Hmm. What was the most surprising client you've worked with that seemed like they've had it all, super successful, but inside they were just like a mental wreck? Like, what was that situation like, and how did you help them? Because we
Ooh,
always hear about celebrities, people that are really successful, and yeah, that's great and all, but then the money's not everything, and we know that there's a lot of events for, unfortunately, yeah, with our society, with YouTube, with short form content, where, yeah, and like you said, these people that are over marketing and under delivering, I mean, rampant in marketing, right? Like my God, marketing is so uh, really, I don't know, this day and age, like there's so many overhyped claims, and it's really easy for people to do that. There's lots
mhm.
of high schoolers out there that have just gotten their first zit saying that they're Facebook ads coaches, and there's a lot of people out of touch with marketing. They're just claiming they can do stuff, and they're taking people's money. It
Yeah,
sucks for me. It's killing me because I talk to people all the time who say they need help, and they're just so skeptical because they've spent tens of thousands of dollars on marketing that has done absolutely nothing. I'm not going to do that to you guys. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. I'm going to help you out. You can come to me. Come old Papa Ryan. He's going to take care of you. Okay. We're not talking about me. I've got experience. Me and Jahmaal, we've got track records. Okay. We got people to vouch for us. Is another very important thing. But back to the question. Yeah, I'm just curious, how, your experience of that has been, kind of what you've seen, and, give us some insight on maybe how we can not get sucked into the hype of success. Yeah.
that's hard because I've been doing like I like the way you gave the timeline on that, and this is no knock to those who just you came out of nowhere and you built a big brand. You did something right, I guess. But I've been doing what I've been doing for 16 plus years. So people say, what's your differentiator? I actually know what I'm doing. I'm not one of those COVID coaches that got a certification off TikTok and decided to brand myself as this guru. Some of us actually
Uh-huh.
have been in the trenches with this and have real experience. But two, it's hard to say worst case, because I've been doing this for so long because everyone is different. And I want to go back. I'm trying to remember what your question was so I can make sure I answer it properly.
Yeah, like who's like the Benjamin Button of your mental health burnout cases? Somebody who was just like really successful, seemed like they're real successful on the outside, but really on the inside they were just hurting mentally and physically. Kind of like, what was that situation like, and how would you guide someone out of that who's who saw the wrong things and dedicated their life to grinding and chasing money and like staying up till 2 and sleeping at 6 and alpha hustle squad
Right.
injecting GHG just so they can keep their eyelids open longer,
The
like
computer.
all that stuff.
I would say there's been a couple of them, and both of them, were senior and high level staff at Fortune 500s. One at Honda, the other at another company that I won't mention because it's really, really popular. So I want to make sure I guard confidentiality here.
Oh yeah,
Um,
NDAs. Let's respect those. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the one at Honda, I mean, the funny thing is that this person was one of very few people of color in a senior leadership position. And so the hard thing is that they kind of bought into the narrative that they had to bring more to the table than what was necessary. And often their ideas, were either not taken seriously or are only valid when their white counterpart would give that idea. And that is something that people of color do go through in, upper echelons of Fortune 500s. And so I actually worked on something I call cultural competence because a lot of times you have all these coaches talking about this stuff and they're not culturally competent. I know how to work with every different culture. You don't have to look like me. You don't have to sound like me. I managed 18 different HR managers in 8 different countries. So within diasporas of Asian, Hispanic, African, European, understanding you, if you don't understand how different people communicate, you will not be culturally competent. And most coaching is set from a Western standpoint. So I'm just going to qualify that right there. And so it misses that the majority of people, most of who have migrated to the United States to do business. One thing. Two, we went through high context and low context culture. And so within every diaspora, there is a high context and there's a low context. And so let's just say within Africa, in Ghana, very high context, very communicative. They laugh a lot. They can be very boisterous. Kenya, very low context, very methodical, very mathematic, very just let's just get the job done. What are the systems and processes? Same way in Asia. Philippines, very loud, very in your face. They want to be everybody's cousins, very touchy feely. Chiang Mai, Singapore, what's the system?
Mm.
What's the process? What's the work? Very stoic. Europe, Poland, very loud, very in your face, very direct. Different parts of Germany,
You got any
same different.
Brazilians?
Hmm?
Any ever have any Brazilian clients?
Not so far. We'll get there. But I found within all of the different quote unquote, what you say, major cultures, um, within the diaspora, there's high and low context. And so getting him to see that, a part of your ethnic makeup may be mostly high context. And so some of these people in management may just be from a low context. They may not get as excited as you do because it's just not in them to be that excited innately. Um,
Mm.
and then working through all the different ways that he was hustling and just all the different things going through his mindset and the ways he was creating some of his own glass ceilings. He actually ended up um, leaving Honda, and now he's one of the top podcasters running his own business. I mean, he's phenomenal with what he does. But that was a huge case, and we worked together for the better part of actually 6 months. Another one who worked for 2 different Fortune 500s. I mean, they manage a staff of over 150. So that's a lot of bodies. But it's like I said, let's take the the NT off management and let's take this season together to manage me.
Mm.
And the main thing, for them is they had gotten so used to, we call it auto accommodating. That's used in the tech industry. Of course, when you turn your computer, what does it do? It will auto accommodate. That way it collects all the cookies, collects all the information. But they were doing that in the spaces that they were working in. And so they let their own fear of what they thought other people were thinking and projecting, they projected that onto them and they were bringing more to the table than what was necessary. Therefore, they were literally the way you described, you know. And so we went through why do they auto accommodate? Where are they overcompensating? Got into the root cause of their childhood, into what their subconscious thought was, and then working, over the course of 90 days to change those narratives from the inside out using some specific principles and exercises that help change the neuroplasticity of your brain. And they've power positioned themselves in the company, gotten major bonuses, positioned themselves and their staff where they're now thriving. And they're actually more present on home front. Reclaiming that time, maximizing their productivity, being efficient, and also winning. Because you can look like you're winning. On the surface, it's like they look they have it all. But
Mm.
those are two of the ones that I think about now out of the many different people I've worked with. But it takes doing the root work and actually dealing with that person where they are, not where you think they are. There's no like template to just put on a person and say, this is my system. It's like, does that work for them?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. We've all got to, yeah, we've all got our own way of operating. We got to figure out what that is. Sometimes we don't even know. So sometimes we need help to really understand how we can best operate and how we should best express ourselves. Which brings me to a question that I wanted to ask you. So, when using emojis, how do you feel about using your skin color for an emoji? For me, I always use the yellow skin color because I
The
feel
Simpson
like,
hands?
yeah, because I feel like if I use the white, like my color, then people might think like, oh, he's like a white, like supremacist or something. Like he's like white pride, like white power. That's like the inkling I get. So I never want to do like a color because I always so that's why I always just do like the yellow because it's neutral. Now, I don't know if that's right. I don't think that's right. I think, it's probably just in my head, but how do you feel about that and how I should feel about that?
How you should feel. I don't have any
Yeah.
feelings on how you or anyone else under the sound of my voice should feel. I would say for everyone, live by the convictions that you have on that. I have none. When I see a yellow, beige, brown, dark, or black hand, it doesn't even register in my mind. I feel like that person is just finding their complexion, and that's what they put through. Like when I send through the yellow, like thumbs up, I'll actually say whoops, and I'll send like the brown thumbs up because that's my actual complexion. Like I'm not a Simpson, so
Yeah.
for me, it doesn't matter. It's a non thing, and honestly, in today's age, Ryan, when where everyone has not everyone that's a generalization, but where there is a majority, not the majority, of people who are just bent on being offended by air. I would say get a life. That is my very non-clinical advice, and I know that may not fly with some of our audiences, but just get a life. It is an emoji and it is a color. If you're with all the things happening in the world today, and in some ways we're not even able to keep planes in the air. If that is what's taking up airspace or airtime in your headspace, I don't even know if Ryan and I can help you with that. That's just yeah, yeah. Find find a hobby, please.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm glad you say that because, yeah, there's just those. Yeah. It's not that. Yeah. I don't want to. Being a marketer, I guess, being, I don't know, someone who wants to connect with a lot of people, I'm at this battle. Like I want people to like me. I want people
Mm-hmm.
to, accept me. I don't, I'm not someone who's like, oh, I don't want to offend everyone. I don't want to step on any toes. But
Right.
yeah, when it just like that kind of one thing, yeah, I wonder like what people think. But really, I think you're right. You should always do whatever you feel is the right thing, without hurting anyone. And if it's something like that, where it's a perception, how somebody could perceive something different, but as long as you have your good normal intention, then that's what you should do. Going off of this point, you talk about community in a safe space. What is a safe space, first of all, in your opinion? And I'm curious, what do you think about X, the social platform? Is X a safe space, for example? I
Okay.
don't know
I
if you
want to
use it a
answer your
lot,
questions
but
in the order that you sent them. So
yeah.
I would say a safe space is any space where you can be everything you are and everything you're not. And those spaces are very rare air because the maturity, you're going to have different levels of maturity, different levels of trauma, different levels of family history, different levels of processing intel, um, and just different levels of life experience. And so within that, can you find that space that is rare air where you feel like, man, these are my peeps. This is my, I'll use that T word. This is my tribe. Um, and where your tribe is. That is a safe space. Do I consider X a safe space? Depends on what corner of X you're in. If you're just a person who has like thousands of followers who's posting God knows what, is that a safe space? Probably not. So I think it really depends on the person. Some people who get on X, and I would say smart folks who, let's just say if they're doing business, they've actually targeted an industry that they're all their content and what they're doing is targeted towards that industry. I would say X is definitely not the place if you want to, if family friendly or whatever like that, because in our very volatile market, people are emboldened. You think about when we were growing up, we're around the same age. You heard the word what? Say it to my face, bro. you know, and really, you kind of had to have the boldness to say it to a person's face. Now with the advent of so much online community, people are emboldened to do things that they normally wouldn't do because they feel empowered. You almost think about just naturally. I'll give an example that will relate to your audience. You feel probably, depending on what your size and body type and bone structure is, a lot more empowered when you get inside your vehicle than you do outside of it. There's middle fingers and different things and gestures that you'll give behind that wheel that you will not outside of that four-door sedan. You just won't. Um, and so you take that same attitude and mentality and take it to the online world in a place like X, and what X is kind of known for. Is X a safe space? I would say by and large no, but it depends on what corner of X you're in. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've stopped going on the platform because I just felt like it's made me, it's just, there's isn't a net positive for me going there, and it's addicting as all other social media, but it's like every day I'm seeing somebody get killed on my feed. It's not like I've actively gone out and searched like people killing each other. It's just that a video pops up, and then it's just like there, and then these things are coming again and again. Lots of negativity with politics. I like that it's somehow balanced. Like there's always a person on the left and a person on the right that's kind of coming up in my feed, and I'm seeing that, and that's good. But it's just without that, I don't feel any worse off. I don't feel any less informed. I just feel like it's a bunch of bullshit that was like sucking all of my time away, and I just didn't like it. It just felt like what my feed, which is a lot more toxic than others. Now, TikTok was the same way, except after a week on TikTok, I just got a bunch of girls shaking their asses and dancing. Now, is that all TikTok or is that some me? I don't know. Who's to say? But that's another platform that I can't be on because it's just like, it just seems like a bunch of garbage that's just like going on my feed constantly. Like LinkedIn was the only one that I felt like, there's some good stuff here. At least there's kind of good people, professional kinds of people, and there seems to be some good content. But I've been fed up with LinkedIn too, and it's just like a lot of generic cookie cutter stuff, AI stuff, like the AI comments, the bad pitches, the chat GPT content. It's like it's ridiculous what that's come to. um YouTube is the only platform I've really found that I love. I love YouTube. I learn, I cook food, I listen to a podcast. I even the shorts there, there's better content there from people that I follow. I love YouTube. So I want to ask you, what is perhaps your favorite platform, and scale me 1 to 10 your feelings on LinkedIn. Where are you at on the platform? I know it's a big platform for you. Obviously, you have a lot of success here, a great, following. You do it well. The first side note, first time I saw you, there's just you holding your phone sideways, walking through the woods, and you're talking for like 7 minutes. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? He's holding his phone the wrong way. He's just out in the woods and he's just talking for way too long. How is this guy getting any views? What's going on with this content? And I'm just playing, just messing around. You're saying really great things, but you're basically going against everything you're supposed to do with content, and yet you've built this amazing community with lots of people following you, basically going against what you're supposed to do. So I'm curious, um, how that's evolved for you too, maybe since the years that you've been building this following here.
Yeah, I mean, coming on like one, I'm a little bit different than your average person on social media in that I didn't get on and get active until 2020. And so, in that sense, I can definitely call myself out as a pandemic baby, um, because I lived most of my life off the grid. So when people say, "Oh, you didn't post every day," I'm so used to living my life sacredly off the grid that I didn't enter into, once Facebook became a thing around, what was that, 2007. and people just kind of start getting into it and living their whole lives online. I was not a part of that group, you know. And then when Instagram came about, I didn't even know what Instagram was. And I would just video blog because I thought Instagram was stupid. It's like, okay, you're in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Why are you there? Why does it matter? Why do I care? And so
Mm.
since 2010, before there were even smartphones, I would take a little Walmart camera and just video blog with it. And people say, Jahmaal, you're kind of a natural at that. You ever thought about like doing that? And so the videos that you were seeing was just me actually just doing. I never needed some video coach or speech coach. It was just me from years of just putting in reps. And most of what people saw in 2020 was me a couple of years after the death of my father. Just I would spend that time out in nature praying and meditating. And so I would have a thought for a minute and a half, which is you didn't see a 7-minute video because I've never done a 7-minute video.
And
But
you had some long ones. You had some long ones.
yeah, never 7 minutes. That is
Oh, okay. Maybe I was exaggerating.
yeah, never even done a 5-minute video. But I
Uh,
I would do a thought for like a minute and a half, maybe a couple of minutes, and I would share it. And I didn't realize I had no idea what a lurker was. I didn't know what an inbound lead was. I literally was working in investigations after coming back home when my dad was still sick. And so the way I built a global brand, which is still scaling to this day in real time, is that I went against the grain of what everyone else was doing. Everyone else was singing a soprano note, and I came in as a tenor. People were like, "Well, who's that?" And I
mm,
still do that to this day because the way the algorithms changed, everyone on LinkedIn looks and still sounds the same. They're all talking about high performance. They're all talking about how to build your brand. They're all talking about LinkedIn. I don't talk about LinkedIn. I'm literally talking about mental health, wellness, resilience, root causes, addictions. So I'm on a platform normally where that stuff wouldn't be talked about a whole lot. But I'm also not talking about myself every day. Some people get on there and say, "Hey, today, like I watched my kid's football game." We don't care. So what? And 60% of my clients are women or mothers and stuff like that. But it's like that, not that it doesn't belong. Your content will go wherever it goes, but that's not going to sell. I wasn't trying to sell anything. So I think for me, it's a little bit different. And I wasn't looking for Listen and Speak. Listen and Speak was looking for me. I didn't put anything on a vision board saying I want to be some entrepreneur. I've been taught the basic: go to school, get your bachelor's, master's, whatever have you, and work for someone all your life. That's the mindset that I've been in for over 33 years. So even me being this business owner with a top podcast, a booming coaching and counseling business, who is now doing corporate workshops, that wasn't what I envisioned for myself. I took that torch and I just ran with it, and I'm still running with it. And I think there's something about me, even though I'm known for being judicious and kind and gracious, that is egregiously irreverent. And I think that has opened a lot of doors for me because I don't hold a single person other than my parents in this high regard. People are people to me. And so I know how to communicate with people without that fear of ingratiating myself. Whenever someone does that to me, I automatically begin to be mistrustful. I'm like, what exactly do you want? And when you speak to people, even leaders, like they're just people, then they know I can trust that guy. It's just amazing the doors it opens. And I'm also not that person that says, "Oh, I have to comment on some big influence." They're a person. We all piss, poop, shower, and shave. They're an influencer to who? So scrutinize what you're constantly hearing. I would say for your audience, whoever's going to hear this play back, ask questions of what seems so common. There you find a lot of good answers.
mm, hmm. Love that. See if you can give me a good answer for this. So first, tell me just two people off the top of your head that you care about a lot right now.
Well, my mother and my father.
Okay,
It's
mother
easy.
and father. You've got a Nerf gun. You got one bullet. They're not looking at you. Which one do you shoot
I'll
for
probably
fun?
shoot me. I don't want to take my parents out.
With the Nerf gun. Who are you gonna mess with? Who's like the one that you mess with and shoot with the Nerf gun?
Well, Dad's no longer here. I'd probably nail him. Yeah,
Probably nail through us,
definitely.
huh?
I'm not gonna shoot my mom with a Nerf gun.
Mom's gonna is mom gonna come down the reign of terror? Was she the disciplinarian? Who was more the disciplinarian?
Um, I mean, let's just say for your audience, they may not know. I grew up dad was actually pretty abusive in the early years before he became a man of faith, and so he discipline from him wasn't normal, which it's a reason why I do what I do, because I don't come from some sort of Teflon background. And so mom had to be both mom and dad in those early days. Even though they were married, we all lived in the same household. I had one who was divine, and very structured, another who was mean enough to be Satan himself. Always provided. We never went without, but it's just like, can you not be an alcoholic for like 2 seconds? It'd be nice, you know. So you didn't ask for that, but I wanted to offer that up just to make myself more human to your audience. Um, and then, once he came about, he was my worst enemy once, but he ended up being my best friend before he passed away, and I miss him dearly. I would still take him out with the Nerf gun. No, I would totally get right between the eyes. I get him.
Nice, man. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I love that.
No problem.
I love that. Let's see what else I got here for you. Okay. So, what is a trigger for you that like still comes up the most? Of all like the ones that like you've maybe worked on in your life, what's that one that kind of keeps kind of inkling and coming back once in a while? And how do you deal with that? I'll be vulnerable. I'll tell my little bit. So I've been having the past year, I've been doing my best to stop drinking alcohol. It's something that over the few years, I've always thought like, I know my best self doesn't drink. I know that when I do, I just know I'm not my best self. When I envision like Ryan, like the User top of mind, the Ryan, he like just doesn't like do that.
Hmm.
And so, but it's been tough. I've been for like a couple months, like and made this kind of commitment through a kind of program. And then that was great. And then, it starts getting like, oh, just one on the weekend. And then somehow it cycles again. And then I
Hmm.
did another thing recently for another couple months. I was like, oh yeah, for sure. And then we had, Carnival was here in Rio, the big, street parties that happened for a week. And I'm like, I'll just drink for this weekend. And then it's kind of come back into it. And so, I don't want to make this about stopping like alcohol, but it's just so funny how your mind can like trick you again. And the way that I've heard it best described is this idea of like the little monster and the big monster. There's this book I read called The Easy Way to Quit Drinking, made this famous by this guy, something Carr, I think it's Alan Carr. And so, there's this idea the big monster is like society telling us about how alcohol is normalized and it's all like just all these like kind of falsehoods about it, makes you happy, um, makes you more social. There's those kinds of lies. And there's the little monster. And it's the idea that, when you're craving that alcohol, you have the craving, it's because it's getting you back to normal. It's like when you're not drinking, you never have a craving because you're always at your good baseline. You're always at that solid point where you need to be, like where you want to be, I guess.
Hmm.
But then when you drink, the drinking, it gets you high and then it takes you back down. And the reason why you feel that craving is you're trying to just get back to normal. So if you can like realize that it's not making things better, you're just kind of getting back to the state you would have been in anyway if you never drank. So anyway, I'm trying to practice this, to say it and remember for myself. But yeah, like for you, what's something kind of like that you deal with, and how do you work on that? Keep the demons at bay.
That's a really good question, Ryan. And one, I want to thank you for your transparency. Uh, in my practice with my clients, and even part of my keynote is called developing trigger awareness. Because a lot of times we hear the word trigger, it's become a common word, especially since the stigma has been lifted, but we don't even know what our triggers are. In many ways, we don't know what our non-negotiables are. So I tell each of my clients also, what you write down, you have to reckon with. And so actually taking pen to pad and getting gut level honest in that painful place of like, what is it that triggers me? What is a repeatable pattern? Because you hear when it either when it comes to drinking or whatever addictive patterns that any of us can find ourselves in, we make promises. You know, promises may speak, but actions and patterns speak louder. You know, and so no matter what promises we make to ourselves or others, our loved ones, our coworkers, our significant others, it's like I made the promise I'll never drink again, I'll never do this again, I'll never gamble again, I'll never yada yada yada. What's the pattern? You know, And a pattern, another phrase I've trademarked, is a pattern remains a pattern until it's disrupted. And so for me, high stress, sometimes, funny thing, I work in the area of stress and burnout, can be a trigger. When I feel like there's too much going on at one time, or even since my dad died, I love my mother dearly, but sometimes the concern for her care, it stresses me out. And I have to know when I'm getting in that place to name it. I can take my feel wheel out. Let me put names to what am I feeling right now? And let me actually put pen to pad. Let me write down what is triggering this response and what is going on neurologically. And what do I want to do about this? Now, sometimes Jahmaal says, I'd like to go eat something. That's like, are you hungry? Or do you just want to eat to send your brain enough dopamine to quiet what your mind is seeing as stress? And when I'm telling myself the truth about what I'm really feeling, to be honest, the brain left unattended to will think the truth is an intrusion. It's just like, intruder alert. Just go eat something. Just go drink something. It's like, you're not thirsty right now. You're not hungry. You actually have some feelings that you need to deal with. And what specifically is the root of that? And how do you want to process that intel so it actually causes you to soar instead of causing you to sink? And so I have to be super intentional. Also, box breathing is a huge one that works for me, because box breathing, what? It oxygenates the brain. It allows you to what? Re-regulate. We spend most of our day, especially if we're on the internet or like you said on our phones, in dysregulation. And when we're in dysregulation, we can go into panic mode. And so when we're triggered, whatever that trigger response is, whether it's alcohol, illicit sex, pornography, overwork, you name it, we will go into that thing just almost unwittingly, like what you call a knee jerk reaction. And so being intentional about disrupting those knee jerk reactions consistently until the brain finally snaps and clicks and says, oh, wait a minute, you keep doing this repeatedly over and over a course of months, that becomes the second nature. But it has to be done consistently.
Yeah. 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 That seems to be, yeah, just that recognition and that, interrupting that. Yeah. Doing something, the box breathing. I think that's a great idea. That's something that I'm going to try and do more. Yeah, because it's funny how when you do become, there's the level of awareness kind of before, the level before you become aware that you can recognize that there are patterns. Um, that's just the craving comes up, and then you do the thing, you drink the drink, you eat the whatever. But then, then you get to the point where you realize that these things are happening, and it's just funny how I can recognize the feeling that's coming up, the pattern, and I can still rationalize to do the thing anyway. I can still create some story about why it's okay, and but yeah, taking an extra step to really step back, do something like breathing, or other kind of exercise, or something to really interrupt it. That makes sense. Do you
And what you
believe in?
just said,
Yeah.
when you recognize something's not okay, before you get to that place of rationalizing yourself out of doing what you need to do, you have a lot of times, we call it the 3 to 30 second window. When the brain is actually, okay, like, what do you want to tell me? And so that's when we have to go in and like actively, I'll say proactively, disrupt those patterns, because our brain has gotten so used to going a certain way. It's more easy to rationalize yourself into toxic patterns than it is to, actually disrupt yourself into a pattern that is good for you. So you're literally going against the grain, and know that's going to be painful, especially for the first 21 to 90 days. Just like when you go into a gym, anyone, man or woman, you see that has a brick house body, that there's been so much tearing down to those muscles. They look that way because they've been torn down. There's been pain. And so I call it, even with clients, when I say once you make it to past week 4, I say now we're cooking, because you're going past the withdrawal phase.
Yeah.
The body's going to go through some withdrawal when you introduce a concept and a pattern that's uncommon. Get used to it.
Yeah. What can you say about moderation? About someone, like, personally, I feel like I need to do things 100%. Like, to
Mm-hmm.
make a business work, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be like 100% dedicated. And no matter what comes up, you got to be able to overcome the challenges and never give up. Like, that's the only way you can really make that work. With the drinking, once I committed, like, I'm just never gonna do it. It was let go. I was like, okay, I can just go
Mm-hmm.
through life and be normal. Everything's good. But I had to 100% commit. Even like working out, there was periods in my life where I haven't worked out. Like when I was in college as a sophomore, one day I just decided, you know what? I'm going to stop working out and I'm going to start smoking cigarettes and just not really
Hmm.
care about my body. And then I did that and that was good. And then one day I was like, you know, I, I got to quit this. Like a guy I was working with told me that his wife died of cancer recently because of smoking. I was like, oh shit, I better quit. And I quit. But
Hmm.
every time I try to compromise and be moderate, I feel like I should be able to do that. There are people that can just have a drink on the weekends. There are people that can do, activities leisurely, like play tennis once a week, on and on. Me, I played beach tennis for a year and a half, a couple times a week, and then I kind of got bored and stopped. So I don't know. Do you think, is this like are there personalities that can just moderate and some can't? Or it's just that some people are just always fighting. They're just always fighting an urge, and that's just how they kind of are living life. Um, yeah.
I think it's a mixture. I want to make sure I answer your question, but I do it holistically. Um, just like you have people who, let's just say, they do AA. Some people do programs really well. There's somebody who will do a program, a mentorship. They can just do that thing because they don't mind being programmed. They like to be told what to do, and they'll just do it. And then you have some people who are just naturally kind of rebellious and they don't do
Mm-hmm.
programs really well. But those are the people that, to me, often have the greatest impact because they know what it took to get them that breakthrough. They had to really struggle through something. They didn't just take the instructions and just, these are the kinesthetic learners that kind of got to put their hands on things and you can't just tell them something. Like I was really amazing at geometry because I could put my hands on it. I sucked at trigonometry because it was just like all the concepts didn't make sense, and I aced statistics because of a miracle by God. Let's just say that. So, um, all that to say, bro, you have to, I would say, get to know. Like again, when I tell people we take the NT off management, we manage me. That's even
Mm-hmm.
part of my instructions in a product that I send out. Like, understand your own psychology and get to know you. And you may just be one of those dudes who, like, you know what? I got to be cold turkey with this thing. I cannot be in moderate because I'll go back into it. I know my father, when he quit drinking, I'll use him as a good example. He didn't even go to functions and family functions where he knew there would be alcohol because he had spent over 50 years of his life as an alcoholic. And so he just knew, like, you know what? One drop of that thing and I'll go back. So he was radical. And because of, I mean, he had his first cigarette at 11 years of age, you know? So when people ask me, like, Jahmaal, why don't you like drink a whole lot? I only drink socially. Like when I go to the doctor, I have a hard time with them with the questionnaire because it's just like I haven't had a drink in 6 months. I don't really know what to write right here, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know what's in the genetics. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. And if that's in
Yeah.
the genetics, I have enough of an addictive personality as it is. I have to be very careful. And so there's an ancient scripture in the book of Corinthians that says they compared themselves amongst themselves and they weren't wise. Sometimes we'll compare ourselves with a counterpart of what's presented about them, and we think I should be able to take those same liberties, and we may not have the makeup physiologically, psychologically, neurologically to take those same liberties. It's like, what do I need to do? If anybody here under the sound of my voice has ever swam or ran track, those are very, very individual sports where you're not really racing against a person, you're really racing against time. Whatever time you made in practice, you're trying to get 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 20 seconds better than that time. And the moment you look across on another lane or whatever like that, that slows you down. We call that drag. And so I would just encourage you to answer your question, whoever's listening to me, try not or learn to not compare yourself with other people, um, because you'll either find yourself taking liberties that you haven't got the green light for, or either overthinking and feeling like really bemoaning your existence that you can't take certain liberties, or you won't find what works for you. At my fighting weight, I'm around like 165 and with a 32-inch waistline. I'm not at my fighting weight right now, but I can guarantee you, I usually wear a size 32 pants. 32 on me will probably be different than the person who's my same height because we have different body types. I got thick thighs, I got a big behind. It's just like clothes fit different on different people because, again, one size doesn't fit all. So, all that, Ryan, is my long winded way of saying to you what works for Ryan.
Mm. Thanks, man. Yeah, great answer. Appreciate that. Hey, man. Well, just as a last thing, can you talk about, you know, I know you've got a community going, kind of that you're launching. You've been doing that, you've been doing stuff for a long time. But speaking of, one size fits all or not, like who is right for your community? Kind of what's it all about? How can we? Who should get in it? Who shouldn't? That kind of stuff. Who do you want to
Awesome,
stay
man.
away?
So yeah, in Q2 we're launching the Listen and Speak community, and I would say, man, this thing has been coming for years. Like every time I've taken one-on-one clients for years. People always say, "Do you do group facilitation?" And I hadn't done group facilitation since 2017. So it's been like almost 10 years since I've done like consistently group. Um, and I got to be a part of a community in this last year. In another community I was part of, we meet every other week. And I was just like, you know what? I want to pay it forward. I want to, because the stuff that I do, with one on one clients is such at a high level. It's very neurological, very, I mean, as you can see in my recommendation section on LinkedIn, I get results, but I wanted to bring that down to the larger community, where we bring it on a higher level in a way that's bite sized for everyone. And the commitments only every other week. There's also different things that'll, will be in the group, that you can take part in. But like a hub, where different people in corporate, whether you're in the tech, HR space, or whether you're an individual contributor, an entrepreneur who's building a business, and you care deeply about wellness, resilience, mental health, but you want to deal with root causes from the inside out. Understanding stress responses, understanding addictive patterns, understanding the family history, those ramifications, and reducing. I've done corporate workshops where we've reduced stress for an organization by over 30%. And so I'm not, there's a value add here, obviously, for the people who are going to attend, but I want those coming in. Like the only thing that disqualifies you coming in is if you're not teachable, and one, you're not a team player, because this is a community. This is not the communities I've been a part of. We benefit from one another. And so if you feel like I'm the one here who knows everything and I can't learn anything from anybody, don't sign up for this. But if you're a
Mm,
person who you are very knowledgeable in your field, but you also are teachable and you want to connect with other people within your direct field, and also some people out, the beauty of mental health is a bit industry agnostic. But obviously I do, I do niche in specific areas because we want to make sure that, you know, we are bringing value and people are leaving with something. I'm always here about leaving people with deposits. And like you talked about earlier, there are people who have signed up for coaching that are so burned. So in marketing, we often have more work to do because of the quacks who didn't do their job, who over marketed and under delivered. Um, my clients will tell you the absolute opposite. I don't post every day. I under market, but I will over deliver, and the community is definitely going to over deliver. So I'm too excited to bring that to you in Q2, and I'll put links here. I think I gave you a link already, but the link will
yeah.
be in the show notes in the comment section here. So for you guys to sign up for that, we start on April 11th at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. For those of you on the West, that'll probably be 12 around your lunchtime, and in the Midwest, it'll probably be about 2:30 or Mountain Time. And globally, I've clients that are in Europe, so if you want to sign on, please jump in there. But and the commitments every other week, so I'm super excited about it.
Yeah. Is this free or paid?
It's paid.
Yeah. Good. Better be. Probably gonna be might change your life. Session one. Sure.
Session one's going to be
You know,
huge, man.
yeah.
But
What's
all
so? What is
sessions
it?
are going
Yeah.
to be
What's
huge.
happening? Well, what's
Hmm?
happened in the first one? What's happened in the first session? What can we look forward to? On the is it, are you doing like like are you going to bring in guest speakers, or is it going to be like structured in each type of like in each session where you're going to learn something specific, or is it more discussion based? Like what happens?
Yeah, each session will. I'm not going to bring in guest speakers on the first session. I wanted them just to get to know me, get to know why we're here, cast a vision, and then use probably about 15 minutes of that, kind of introducing folks to one another. And then after that, it'll be very instructional. We're going to start off with a series on like stress responses, and then I'll be bringing in industry experts. It'll also be super communicative, and there'll also be a separate chat, where each person in the group, who can come and share different ideas, and there'll also be an information hub that's available. So I'm super excited about what's going to be happening. But we're going to start off with, because I think when we talked about triggers here, a lot of folks have different stress responses. They don't even realize how they're on autopilot. And so actually even discerning amongst the community, what is your specific stress response? How does it manifest itself, and how can we tackle that together? So
Mm.
I'm really excited about where this is going.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, being able to identify what that biggest stress response is right away and start actually actively working towards, yeah, changing your patterns. Like that's huge. That sounds great. Okay, man. Yeah, link will definitely be in the show notes, and I'm sure you're going to be super successful with this group, and you're going to help a ton of people, and you're just going to keep doing your thing, and change the world. Keep, whatever, doing what you're doing. Man, I wish I could have said that better. There's something, you know what I mean. You know what I mean, man. You're doing great things. I appreciate you coming on here talking to me. And I think everyone can just tell that you know your stuff, and you really care about people, and whoever works with you is just so blessed to have someone like you in their life. We all are to be connected to you, Jahmaal. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for having me, man. God bless you.
Yeah. God bless you, brother, and end.